asked his name. He looked at me, he heard, so hearing is okay, because some of the children will multiply the same. Hearing may be impaired, vision may be impaired, depending on the severity of involvement in outpatient. I'm talking about, this is the way I do it, I always greet the child. Even if the mother has already greeted me, I always greet the child. The father is there, I always greet the child. I get to know, can he hear, can he see, does he use his right hand or not? So if he uses right hand, he would hear. I asked him his name. He did not come out with a comprehensible expression. There is something wrong in the speech. The father clarified that his name is Vishal. So I have a message here. So without actually checking is the speech normal, asking from the history, I know that this is the problem. The speech is not normal. The children have dysarthritic speech because spasticity of the speech muscles in the oropharynx will have a dysarthritic speech, and they will be happy. When he is not able to say. They will also have problems in actual motor speech. So I have three information right now. Right hand dominant. You can hear, you can see. The speech, the both information is the speech is not normal. Okay. It is sometimes the informant is the father. So you have to tell the informant as the father or the mother. Chances are he would know the details. The mother would know the details. So I have a limitation in my information gathering. कितने साल का बताया? 8वां साल का है. 8th year. Okay. For an 8-year-old boy, he looks small. 8वां साल. पूरे 9 महीने बाद पैदा हुआ था. 10वां में पैदा हुआ. Probably post-8. Okay. तुरंत रोया था? क्या हुआ था? Delayed cry, delayed responses. घर पे पैदा हुआ था, घर पे. So at home delivery, some delay, post delivery. So there is probably post dated. So post dated is a very clear definition. Post dated, the obstetrician will tell you that. I'm not going to teach you obstetrics here, but this here the father is giving the history. 10 months down the line, the child was delivered at home and had a delayed cry. और आगे बढ़ने का कितनी उम्र में चल बैठने लगा था ये? 5वें नहीं, बैठने कब लगा? तीसरे चौथे महीने में, साल में. 3 years he started sitting. Now that's a very, very gross thing. Okay, sitting should normally be 6 months. 6 months. Okay, 3 years is sitting. Okay, so if you were to look at prognostication in child who is sitting at 3 years, there is likely to be significant walking in delay in walking. और खड़ा कब होने लगा? 5वें-6वें साल में. Spastic children normally stand by around 5 or 6 years. Who are going to be walkers, they normally stand by 5 or 6 years. These are questions, I'm asking this question, I always ask this question to every child or CP that comes to my OPD. This is the OPD response. Okay? 5वें-6वें साल में चलने लगा. बगैर पकड़े चलता है? अभी चल लेता है? बगैर पकड़े? हाँ हाँ. But अपने आप चलता है ना. So I now have this material. Delayed birth with this set of information. Any question anybody else wants to ask after this? I still have questions, but do you want to ask any other question? You got to bear with the essential detail now. Post-dated child, delayed cry, delayed milestone. Anything else? With an abnormal speech, hearing is good and vision seems to be okay. Anything else you want to ask? Consanguine. Before consanguine, something else? Siblings, that's more important. So you need to know, is it some other anomaly other than cerebral palsy? So you are, एक पहला बच्चा है या घर पे और भी है? कितने बच्चे हैं? हाँ, वो ठीक ठाक है बिल्कुल, किसी को कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. So normally, when you get this history, then asking the other histories may not be too significant, but it's good to have a complete history. So other siblings takes priority over consanguinity. If other siblings are affected, then consanguinity becomes much more important. Is that okay? So this I stop here, but it's important to have this much of information. Any other information?
Seizures.
Seizures. That's a very important one. Many of these children have seizures, and your history is not complete if you have not taken that of seizures. Please take a history of seizures. Okay? Many of them will be on medication. You need to continue medication. If you are contemplating surgery, pre-op, you must continue. Otherwise, there is a higher risk of convulsive disorder. Not normal anesthesia, but if there is a hypoxic episode during anesthesia, very high chance of provoking a seizure in nature. That's simple. So you have your information sufficient enough for your operation. Is that okay? Now, I need to know, is his condition worsening or is he getting better? From the history, obviously he is getting better. अभी और कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं हुई इसको? पेशाब के लिए बता देता है? बता देता है. Very important point you must talk about. Bladder and bowel history. So you have an information which is very critical to your final management. So now I start examining the child. So if the child he was carried by the father, I didn't see him walk, so I wouldn't see him walk. चलता है ना? जरा चलाकर दिखाओगे? Any other question anybody wants to ask? Any clarification? Do you have reasonable information on this? ठीक है गिरेगा. इधर को चलाओ, इधर को चलो बेटा. Anybody wants to volunteer? Describe the gate. Any volunteer for description of the gate? If you can see at the back, वापस चलो बेटे. रुक जाओ बेटे. रुक जाओ. रुको रुको. खड़े हो जाओ. Yeah. Anybody wants to volunteer? Yeah.
Child is walking with unassisted.
Unassisted.
Bipedal.
Bipedal.
Toe to heel.
Toe to heel gait. Now, heel is not touching at all. So I can't say it is toe to heel. Okay.
Toe to toe gait. With the
Okay, I think for the sake of time, now for this, he has a startle problem. So when I suddenly started speaking, I think he got a startle. That's also a problem in a part of delayed milestones. Normal small children, infants have the startle reaction. Older children don't have it, but this may persist. Some of these primitive reflexes may persist. Now, observational gait analysis. Observational gait analysis, you need to first have the child walking minimum 15 steps. Examine the child front, side and back. That's what I got him to do. Walk there and walk back and walk this way. Front, side and back. Examine the head, shoulder, trunk, arms. Head, arm, trunk, that is a hat segment. That's one component. Then the leg component. So when we look at the head arm component, trunk component, let's see what is he doing. Chalo beta zara, chaloge? As soon as he starts to walk, he raises his arms. That's a high arm position. That's a high arm position. He's raising his arm like that. That means he does not have sufficient balance. Somebody can be. I'll say on that. That means he does not have the balancing ability to control his position. So like a tightrope walker who needs a long stick to balance himself, is using his arms to balance himself. So you have three positions that are described: a high arm gait, a mid arm gait, or a low arm. High arm immediately means the walking balance is not. So this child does not have a good walking balance. One side is high arm, more than the other side. So it's an asymmetric high arm gait with picture of it. He is lurching to the right side. He is leaning to one side. Yes, he put his trunk is leaning to one side. He's lurching to one side, and he's got a high arm gait. Okay, so head, arm, trunk. This is the description. Tells you clearly his balance is not as good as it should be for a child of 8. That's the information that is gathered. Let's look at the lower segment now. Let's look at the leg segment. Let him walk. As he's walking, look at the hip, look at the knee, and look at the ankle. You need to go back and forth. Look at the hip. What is happening? The left hip is flexing more than the right hip. Can you make it out? The left knee is flexing more than the right knee with every swing phase. Okay? With every swing phase, left hip is flexing more, left knee is flexing more. Opportunity. You see that? Left hip is flexing more, left knee is flexing more, left foot is going into plantar flexion and more equinus position. Whereas the right hip, right knee is less flexed than that, but it is still a little more than normal. Something else you notice on the leg? The whole leg is internally rotated more on the right side than on the left side. Office chalo? See that? Very cooperative guys. Can you see that? Both toes are in toes. So, pigeon toe gait is the description that you have for in toeing. Right? So, asymmetric pigeon toe, which means that one half of the brain is more affected than the other half. There is in toeing which is there on both sides. So, you have that in toeing more on the left side than on the right side. And walking with a high stepping gait is there on one side. You can see carefully. Chalo bete see that side. I'll explain the part. See that? The left side is a high stepping posture. So, hip is flexing more, knee is flexing more, foot is going to plantar flexion, and it is going up. Okay? Let's look at the right side. So, you need to look at the stance phase movements and the swing phase. What I described was the swing phase. Higher flexion here, and equinus there. That is all swing phase components. Okay, let's look at what is happening in the stance phase. Neither of the heels are touching the ground. Both the heels are off the ground all the time. And if you see, the dorsum of the foot is normally convex. The dorsum of the foot is now concave. We call that expression as a midfoot break. That happens when the arch is collapsed, and because of a persistent equinus, there is a midfoot break, which is actually an equinus happening in the ankle, which prevents the normal dorsiflexion which happens during the stance phase happening in the midfoot by breakage of the mid-tarsal joints. Okay, so we call it midfoot break. There's no fracture there, but it's a joint which has got hyperextended at the midfoot. Okay, so that's what you're having there. So you can have there the midfoot break on either side with a heel out persistently on both sides. There's something else which is happening in stance phase. At times, what he's doing is, on the right side, when you see the knee is going into extension. Towards the end of stance phase, the knee is going into extension. Remember, in normal gait cycle in stance phase, even in stance phase, when you are doing your gait cycle, the knee is never in complete extension. At no point is this in complete extension. It starts with a 5-degree flexion, then moves on to further flexion, moves on again, ends with almost again a 5-degree flexion. It is never extended. So if in the stance phase, there is a tendency for extension in the knee, like in this patient on the one side, there is a tendency for extension which you can make out. Obviously, is secondary to equinus in the ankle. Okay, so persistent equinus will lead to a posterior thrust in the knee and recurvature. So you can look at it both sides. The child comes to you with a recurvature like this, Not too much, just a mild stance phase hyperextension, look for equinus. Other way around, the child coming to with equinus, look for hyperextension. So the coronary. So here is the child who is walking independently with a high arm gait, with a high stepping gait on one side, with hip flex, knee flex over on one side, and an equinus which is dynamic on one side, with heel never touching the ground, with a stance phase hyperextension on one side. Okay, so here is the child who has all these properties in walking. He has a reasonable standing balance. He doesn't need stand. Many of the children don't have ability to stand independently for long. They stand with a support. It's like a rolling coin doesn't fall. The moment the coin stops to roll, it falls. Standing balance is more than the need for standing balance, the requirements for standing balance is more demanding than the requirement for walking. The requirements for running is less than for walking, is less than for standing. So it's in that sense. So many of the children will run. He is walking quite okay, but running is also okay, so he is generally okay as far as walking ability, independent walker, but he has it. Now what do I want to look? I look for the ability to sit and ability to articulate. Did he have a lordosis? I didn't find a lordosis. So write down it. I get him to sit. Okay. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So I get him to sit like this. There is no kyphosis, no nothing. But the moment I turn him around, what has happened? This is increased. Can you see that? When he is sitting on the edge of the bed, I get him here. Sitting, he sits more straight. This is more straight. The moment I stretch his legs out, I stretch his leg out. Can you see him going back? There is increase in kyphosis. And see him putting his arms behind you? That's the tripod sign. When you do that, his hamstrings are tight, his arms go back, so that's for support. So he needs his buttocks and his two arms like the tripod to support him. So this, when I do on the right side, it doesn't do that much. But the moment I do on the left side, see that? He's using the tripod sign. So sitting comfortably, so that indicates there is asymmetric hamstring tightness. That's when this happens. Okay? When you have that, so I check that out. Since they're sitting for the sake of time, I'll do this. So this is a test we always do, and we check for hamstring tightness. We already know it exists. So I'm going to check for his hamstring tightness by doing a static raising. Is allowing on the right side hamstring tightness. It is. Remember, I haven't done the general physical examination. I haven't done the examination for plantar abdomen and all. I'm assuming you're going to do all that. Huh? These are tests that I do normally. Huh? Straight leg raising, I'm doing it. The moment I take it beyond about 65, 70, he has a flexion. That's okay, that's within the normal range. On this side, the moment I take it beyond about 45, 50, it is beginning to flex. So there is a greater tightness of the hamstring on this side. There's another test that we do, straight leg raising on the left side is 50 degrees, on the right side is about 65 degrees or so. I do what is known as a pop angle. Okay, now this is a pop angle that we do. Flex the hip 90 degrees and then extend the knee gradually. When you do that, at this point it stops, but then you wait for some time, it goes up again. It's almost 45 degrees. This is measurement is from the vertical. From here you measure. So if you look at a normal human being, straight leg raising is never 90 degrees, isn't it? So this is 90 degrees. So you have a measurement from the vertical if you take. Some examiners don't like to call it the popliteus angle, saying that the measurement is from here. The standard textbook of cerebral palsy by Freeman Miller very clearly states this as the popliteus angle. So let there be no confusion on that. This is the standard expression. No, I'm saying standard textbook gave this as a populatus angle. Okay, so this is measurement from the vertical, you measure the angle, because Holt's describe this, so people like to call it Holt's angle, but then the standard textbook gives it as populatus angle, so we will follow the tradition of textbooks and not of journals. Okay, so you have vertical as a reference and you measure. So if you have a normal person having a limitation of full extension to 90 degrees, in a normal human being, the populatus angle will be around 50 to 20 degrees, because if he is able to do only till 70, his populatus angle will be, SLR may be 70, but his populatus angle is 20 degrees or so. Okay, so that becomes your zero error for your populatus angle. So that is the zero error for populatus angle measurement. You measure, this is R1, wait for some more time, this is R2. The difference between R1 and R2 tells you the dynamic difference in the spasticity of this child. So that's simple. So you check for straight leg raising, check for populatus angle, measure of tightness of the pelvis child, you've done that. Then what else do? You want to check for, in the same position, you want to check for, is the abduction restricted? So with the knee flexed, you abduct, very good abduction. With the knee extended, you abduct. That's also good. What does that indicate? Gracilis is the only adductor which crosses the knee. So this indicates gracilis is not very bad. Okay, it's quite relaxed. Good extension, knee abduction, and good flexion knee abduction. This is, you do this gracilis tightness assessment is called by pelvis. Okay, then you do check for the gastrocnemius, equinus. Does he have an equinus? With the knee extended, that's the, there is a little equinus, but if you persist, it gets corrected. You see that? Similarly on the other side. When I persist, so I am not flexing the knee. The moment I flex the knee, it goes nicely into dorsiflexion. You see that? When I flex the knee, it goes into dorsiflexion. Silver-shouled test. Silver-shouled is a Scandinavian person who described this test to differentiate soleal from gastrocnemius spasticity. So, the knee is extended, both the soleus and gastrocnemius will contribute equinus. When you flex the knee, the soleus is the one which is continues to contribute to the equinus. If it is there is a contraction of soleus, it will continue to be as it is. When you flex the knee, gastrocnemius is relaxed, and therefore this will be dorsiflexion. So there is good dorsiflexion and flexion, and the degree of dorsiflexion goes down in extension. Silver-shouled test. Okay, so you have straight leg raising, the populatus angle, you have Phelps test, you have Silver-shouled test. You put the patient prone, you want to check if the rectus femoris is calculated. Okay. So I do the test. I flex the knee and flex the knee. If the rectus femoris is tight, the pelvis will rise. Okay, rectus femoris has a straight head which arises from the inferior leg spine, the reflected head which arises from the superior border, the acetabulum. So when you flex it, the knee portion is touching the rectus, and that will, if it is tight, will elevate the pelvis like that. Okay, so that's the prone rectus test of abdomen. It is negative. So rectus is not overactive. Hamstring is overactive more on one side than on the other side. Both gastrocnemius are overactive on this side. Okay, it has a dynamic spasticity. Is there anything that I want to check? I do what is known as a Phelps confusion test. Partner. Yeah, I asked him, मेरी उंगली पे इधर दे, मेरी उंगली पे क्या है? ऐसे, ऐसे, I think ऐसे. Now that's Phelps confusion test. Why is it called a confusion test? This movement is part of a normal withdrawal. So when I raise the thigh, like ask him to raise the thigh, reflexly the dorsiflexors will work with their function. The problem in cerebral palsy is independent muscle function is lost. Individual group muscle function may be present as part of a normal reflex. Normal ventral reflex will have dorsiflexor function. So in this particular case, when I ask him to raise this, you could have it. What is happening? He is able to dorsiflex. This is functioning. So Phelps confusion test demonstrates a functioning dorsiflexor in this child. You could have it. But you see something. He is taking it to supination. This tibialis anterior is overactive in this child in the Phelps confusion test. It helps you decide what tendon transfers you may consider in the future. But at this point of time, when he is walking, there is no supination, so I wouldn't worry about any tendon transfer. So here is this child where the Phelps confusion test, dorsiflexors are active, slight tendency for overactive supination on the left side, but not so much on the right side. So that's my overall assessment. So here is the child walking independently, high arm gait, with a high stepping gait on one side, which suggests a dynamic, no contraction, a dynamic spasticity on one side more than the other side, and heel off persistently on both sides. So the tendency for hyperextension on one side. We need to watch that. Whenever there is a tendency for recurvatum, that tends to progress. So maybe he will eventually need surgery for that. Otherwise, what will I do for him? Options? Bracing. First, always try therapy and bracing. So, poor family, I don't think he would have had access to physiotherapy. That's why he recently, which is very difficult. Father is very happy. He has come down much better than what it was before. But he definitely needs an ankle foot orthosis. His child needs an ankle foot orthosis because both heels are off ground persistently. We need to keep that under control. Otherwise, recurvatum will eventually worsen with time. So, he needs an AFO on both sides. What will you do, sir? Sir, give him physiotherapy, give him ankle foot orthosis on one side. Subsequently, keep him under observation. Maybe he needs on the other side also a vulgate knee and watch the recurvatum. Nothing else. He doesn't need anything else. Maybe balancing exercises. I'll stop here. Any question you want to ask for any?